It was a gray Saturday morning in a quiet corner of Ohio, where rain painted streaks across the garage windows of Ben Walker's auto repair. The scent of oil, steel, and brewed coffee filled the air, familiar comforts to a man who'd spent most of his life with a wrench in hand and silence in his soul. Ben, a widower in his late 40s, lived alone above his shop. He rarely smiled, spoke only when necessary, and was known around town as a man of few words but great work. Locals respected him, even if they didn't really know him. That morning, just as he was about to close early for the weekend, the bell above the garage door jingled. He looked up to see a teenage girl maneuvering slowly through the rain in a wheelchair. Her clothes were damp, and her long dark braid clung to her back. A man followed closely behind, her older brother, it seemed. "Hi, are you Ben?" the girl asked, her voice soft but steady. Ben wiped his hands on a rag and nodded. "My name's Ellie James, and this is my brother, Luke. I was told you might be able to help us restore an old car." Ben tilted his head, a bit surprised. "What kind of car?" She smiled slightly. "A '67 Mustang. It was our dad's. He passed away last year. It's kind of all we have left of him." Ben's eyes softened for a fraction of a second. "We want to fix it up," she continued, "but we don't know the first thing about cars. And we can't really pay much." Luke cleared his throat and added, "I can help after school. We just need someone to show us how." Ben stared at them for a long moment, then quietly said, "Bring it in." The Mustang was a rusted skeleton of its former glory. Dents, missing parts, and time had nearly claimed it, but Ellie beamed as she rolled herself near it every afternoon, notebook in hand, asking questions, sketching diagrams, and watching Ben's every move with fierce determination. What began as a favor became something deeper. Ben started to teach, not just fix. He showed Ellie how to replace a carburetor with one hand while she balanced a socket wrench with two. He let Luke sand and prime panels. He stayed late some nights, not for pay, but because something about Ellie reminded him of her, his own daughter, who died in a car accident 7 years ago, just a week after getting her license. For the first time in years, Ben began to feel again. Hope. Purpose. Healing. One afternoon, as they worked under the hood, Ellie spoke quietly. "My dad used to say this car would take me to college one day. He always dreamed I'd drive it there myself." Ben looked at her wheelchair, then back at her hopeful eyes. "He wasn't wrong," Ben said gruffly, "but we'll have to make some changes." And so, the restoration took a turn: custom hand controls, adjusted seating, voice assist tech. Ben poured himself into it like it was his own daughter's dream. 6 months later, the Mustang was reborn, gleaming blue paint, chrome trim catching the sunlight, an engine that purred like it had just come off the lot. Ellie gasped when she saw it. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the steering wheel. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. Ben looked at her, his voice rough with emotion. "Just drive it well. For your dad." But that day, the surprise wasn't for Ellie, it was for Ben. Luke stepped forward, holding an envelope. "Ellie applied for a scholarship months ago, a special one, for students overcoming physical adversity. She wrote about you. About how a gruff old mechanic taught her about grit and hope." Ben opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. "Congratulations, Ben Walker. You've been selected for the Heart of the Community Award, along with a grant of $50,000 to support mentorship and training for disabled youth in your trade." Ben blinked, stunned. "You didn't just restore a car," Ellie said, eyes brimming, "you restored a life. Mine." In the weeks that followed, Ben's garage became something more: a learning space for disabled teens, a community hub, a place of second chances. People came not just for car work, but for hope. And every time Ben looked out the window and saw Ellie pulling up in that Mustang, smiling with the wind in her hair, he knew. It wasn't just her life that had been changed. It was his too. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can be the engine that drives someone else's future, and unexpectedly, your own. A life restored can restore another.